Welcome, Interisti, to episode 135 of the Inter Views podcast. We are here, the official podcast of SempreInter.com. Damn, one day I'm just going to breeze through it. We are here for the post-match reaction of Inter Udinese, which finished 2-1 to the hosts at the Stadio Giuseppe Meazza. Goals from Marko Arnautovic in the 12th. Davide Frattesi in the 29th, and a world-class goal from Omar Solet in the 71st minute. As always, I'm one half of your co-hosting duo, Alessandro Rafa, joined here by Gianni Paterno. Gianni, definitely not the kind of game, the easy breezy kind of game we were hoping for coming out of the international break. The Pazza Inter had to take over. I think my blood pressure has finally come down, but we get the 3 points regardless. But it's been a while. How was your international break?
International break was low key. Got to watch the first Italy game with some fellow eye ties out here in Vegas. That did not go over well. A lot of yelling, a lot of not understanding Spalletti and his intentions. But for the most part, a pretty good break for me personally. So I probably shouldn't complain about the outcome for a meaningless tournament, right?
Yeah, and it's not like Inter was entirely out of the spotlight. A lot of not only Interisti taking part in the international break, but you always get the transfer news start to ramp up during the last international break of the year, and Inter was no exception. Everything from Mkhitaryan doing interviews about potentially retiring to Taremi saying he wants to continue to stay in Europe. I don't know if that was him saying it's probably not going to be at Inter, to Nico Paz. Apparently that's looking like he's going to stay at Como for another year. But I digress. Happy to have Inter back. And we're coming back into a very pivotal month. 8 games in the next, 28 days or something like that. And some really big clashes. Obviously, the Champions League is coming up against Bayern Munich, who are suffering their own spate of injuries, did not have a good international break as far as the injuries are concerned. Alphonso Davies, ACL, out for the rest of the season. Even in this last weekend, Kim Min-jae is dealing with some back issues. They lost Ito to, I think, a broken metatarsal in his foot. So they're dealing with whatever they've got going on. And then obviously we have the Coppa Italia semifinal against Milan coming up. But in Serie A, this was a crucial game against an Udinese team, which they're not fighting for European places. They're safe from relegation, but they're a compact, organized side that are not going to be easy to break down. Obviously, playing in the 12 p.m. Eastern window ahead of Napoli Milan, it was important that Inter came out and made a statement. Unsure how forceful that statement was. If I'm a Napoli fan, I'm encouraged by what I saw today with Inter not looking so great and, them being able to take care of Milan. But as far as the standings and the way things sit in Serie A, Inter is still +3 ahead of Napoli. Atalanta losing to Fiorentina. Now, 9 back of Inter, 6 back of Napoli. So I think we can kill their title challenge officially. And it's Napoli Inter for the rest of this, for the rest of these 8 games. Before we get into, what happened today, let me just get your consensus, your feeling after the results of this weekend. Just the results. Is the 3-point lead over a Napoli team who they're heading into Bologna, which if you look at their schedule is the last tough game that they have to play. What's your feeling of where we're standing with 8 games left to go in the championship?
I would have felt better with a 4-point lead, but thanks to Jimenez, that was not possible. It's going to be tough. I don't like that we have to rely on other clubs to help us. We tried that, what was it, 2 years ago? When Milan won their title, that was 3 years ago. Sorry, 2 years ago was when Napoli ran away with it. But we saw how no team really did help us out along the way. So we now have to control our own destiny, which is win every game. The only, I guess, saving grace is that if we did somehow end on a tie, it would then go to head-to-head.
Head-to-head.
And then head-to-head, we drew both games, so we don't lose it there. But then I believe we would actually have to play a playoff. I thought that was something that was the new rule. I don't know if that was actually implemented. I guess I'd have to double check. But if it's goal differential, we have that covered then. So
by a lot. Yeah.
So
not something that they can make up in these 8 games.
Yeah, not something at all. Especially with the way that they've been playing even recently. Even though they've won, their last 2-3 games, doesn't mean that they are, all of a sudden going to become, 4 or 5 goal scorers per game. So I feel safe there. But I don't like that the only game that's going to be a challenge for them is going to be Bologna. So if Bologna come through, then I feel much better. But again, to put our faith in the hands of another team, probably not going to happen.
And Bologna is obviously doing, incredibly well as of recently. Sorry, I have a sneeze coming on that's like right on the edge here. Bologna's been doing very well. They worked themselves into the Champions League spots here, but we also have to play them. So it's not like, they can take care of Napoli. Like, does that give them the confidence they need to take care of us? It's not really a great situation. I think we definitely have the tougher run in, especially when you consider all the games we have going on and the different competitions that we have. So it's going to be a fight. Conte seems to think he's pulling off a miracle. I would argue otherwise, but regardless, let's talk about this game. So after the game, I tweeted that I've taken the calma approach to a lot of the poor performances that we've seen from Inter this year, but finally I got pretty annoyed with the result of this game. At Milton Inter 3, he commented, Inter played an almost perfect first half and won. That's what I take away from it. We missed Lautaro, Dumfries, Bastoni, and started without Barella, which I wanted to highlight because that is the context of what happened here. But the stuff that really, really bothers me about this game is that the drop-off in mentality that occurs, no matter who was on the pitch. It's not, we've seen this drop-off in mentality with Lautaro on the pitch, with Barella on the pitch, with Bastoni on the pitch, with Dumfries on the pitch, where you get into the last 15 minutes and it's a fight for your life. Every time the opponent comes down the pitch, they look like Inter's on shaky legs. They look like they're about to score. It's like Milan trying to defend a counterattack. And I don't know what happens. Like, I don't know what everyone else was watching, but I saw Sommer pull off some pretty massive saves at the end in order to secure us this victory. It's not like Udinese didn't create a lot in the game. The Solek goal was obviously like a wonder goal that no one's expecting, but that was also pretty poorly defended. And then for the rest of the game, it's like you're on ice skates. And if you would have gotten a draw today and Napoli picks up, the 3 points against Milan, you're changing the calculus of the whole momentum heading into these last 8 games. So I understand that we didn't have Dumfries, Bastoni, Lautaro, but also I feel like I do need to, impart the fact that we're not going to get to choose who's present for these games in the run-in. You don't know who's going to get hurt. You don't know who's going to be available. We don't get to choose. We're at the point in the season where if Aslani comes in late into the game, or Bisek comes in late into the game, or Barella comes in, later on into the game, everybody needs to lock in as if they're the starter. Arnautovic has to come in, or Correa, whoever it might be. We're not going to get to choose who's going to be available for us, but that doesn't change the objectives that we're going for. And Inter very well could have thrown away the game in the last few minutes there. And this is not like I want to kill Inter. I've been behind them despite all the poor performances that we've seen this year, but it's more so like, I get what you're saying, the 3 points matters, and that's the way it's been for me all year. But this was not an encouraging end to the game. Coming out of the international break, if your first 20 minutes looks like shit, fine, understood. If your last 20 minutes of the game looks like shit, we're holding on to, a 2-1 lead, that is concerning. That is concerning. You have reports that Dumfries' injury is they're going to have to slow play it even harder than they were anticipating. So he's gonna be out. Like we're gonna need players to step up. I don't know. Do you want to kill them for what happened in the last 15, 20 minutes of this game?
Kill, probably not. Berate in the dressing room, that, yeah, probably. Like you said, it is inexcusable. I don't know what Barella was thinking with that run that he allowed Soleil to take. I mean, like you said, it was a wonder goal, but you could have easily stepped in, even if he did foul. It probably wouldn't have been a yellow because you were in front of him. I think he still could have got the ball and gotten away with whatever and gone on the counter, but I don't know what was going through his mind in there. I don't know. Yeah, that's something that I guess would need to be asked of him, because I don't want to just
Aslani, Pavard, everybody backing off, just letting the guy, like, I know he's a center back, but like he's a pretty skillful technical player.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do that with anyone. You shouldn't let anyone just charge up the field 30 yards.
Yeah, I think the only person who really doesn't get anything bad said about them, like you said, is Sommer. The huge save on that Luka header. I think it was Soler again, right, on the second one that he made. So yeah, he's the only one who really got us all 3 points in reality. Yeah, it doesn't. I don't know if it's something with Inzaghi where he allows him to take the foot off the gas. He seemed pretty animated on the sideline, so I don't know if it's really on him as much as people may want to put it on him. But it is it is a concerning thing to see the way that game ended. But I also do look at the missed chance by Dimarco, right? Like that could have made it 3-0 at that time. And then would we be this upset? I don't know. Yeah, when you only win by the one goal though, and you see the opportunities that Udinese had, it is concerning. And like I just hope that this was just a sign of people still on the international break who came on in the second half, more so than a trend.
Yeah, so I think the big shift for me in this post-match, because we're recording a few hours after the game here, more and more information comes out immediately after the game, seeing those substitutions, and just to name them off, Correa came in for Arnautovic, Bisek comes in for Dimarco, Barella comes in for Frattesi, Aslani comes in for Hakan, and Zalewski comes in for Darmian. In the immediate aftermath of the game, I feel like Inzaghi lost control of the game for his team by making those substitutions. If you're watching the flow of the game, like Arnautovic was doing his part, and Correa comes on and shies away from every single challenge. Don't forget that the Solet run starts with an aerial duel that Correa doesn't get involved in, and Solet can just chest it down and start his run up the pitch. Aslani coming into the game, does that really lock things down for you in a period where you have 15, 20 minutes to hang on? Not really. Barella comes on. I don't think people wanted to really see him today unless we had to, but he went to him, and then Zalewski, of course, at the end. But in the post-match, a lot of these changes were forced. Arnautovic apparently asked to come off, dealing with whatever he was dealing with. Dimarco comes back after a 29-day layoff, was not going to give us 90. Barella comes in for Frattesi. Frattesi also asked to come off. Aslani comes in for Hakan. Hakan had just played 2 90-minute games with Turkey over the internationals. And Zalewski comes in for Darmian, another player who was on a long layoff. So I don't kill Inzaghi for the subs. And I think the other thing that's important to note about whether or not it's Inzaghi's fault for losing control of the game, that red card that he got, where he basically walked onto the field, this is speculation. I could be totally wrong, but in my point of view, Inzaghi is totally lucid in that moment. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's either like stalling the game for a second to allow his players maybe a breather to like reset and get back into this, or just like firing them the fuck up. How many, Johnny, you and I are both baseball fans. Like, how many times does a manager come out to argue balls and strikes just to fire the team up, not caring about getting tossed? Like that's what I felt was going on from Inzaghi in that moment. I don't know if you saw it differently.
I mean, yeah, no, I guess I would agree with you that he was I think he was definitely trying to instill some type of, from his players, or to kind of drive them forward. I do think that this is, with him at least, like been a long time coming to get it, for because he seems to wander on the pitch often. I think I think that it is what it is with him. I do find it kind of ironic that he pulls people off when they get a yellow, but then he's a little cavalier himself with cards. But listen, I hope that was the case, that he was just trying to fire his squad up and kind of will them to finish out the result. But again, I don't know. I don't know with him lately. I don't know if it's. I don't want to say that I'm like unsure of him. That's not how I mean it. But I guess I don't know where he's at. I don't know what he's doing or what he's trying to get out of the guys. And even like you said, the substitutions when they occurred, obviously for the reasons you mentioned, but were they the right guys at that time though? Like that's kind of where I'm at.
I think what he's pulling off this year is the performances on the pitch have not been great or what we imagine from an Inzaghi side, but dealing with the amount of games that he's had to deal with and the injuries that have piled up in bunches in key positions, like I think he's probably doing as good a job as you can expect to do given the circumstances. But somebody has to take blame for this late game mentality where for 15 minutes, the team that we've been dominating all game all of a sudden looks like they're going to score on us. And I don't know exactly where to assign that. Like I said, so the mentality of some of the players that came in today, not wanting to put a single foot in or single challenge in was so crazy. Like you're low on the depth chart. You've been in Appiano Gentile. You didn't have to go on an international break. Like, you're on the pitch. You should run until your lungs explode. You should dive into every challenge. That was unacceptable. And Barella was off it today.
Yeah.
I'm not going to kill him because he's not the kind of player to kill, but I don't know. I don't know who to give it to with Inzaghi or the players.
Would you say that was his worst performance of the season? Because I probably would.
It's the worst cameo I've ever seen. And I almost feel like you have to give it worst performance because if he's playing for 45 minutes plus, he'll have a moment of like, he'll get himself into it. But today, it's almost like he didn't have enough time to get going. And it was just pathetic. It was pathetic.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Same can be said for other players too. All right. So beautiful first half. The goal scored. Arnautovic made the goal that he scored from the layoff to the left-hand side. Mickey plays in Dimarco. Dimarco plays it across. Arnautovic kind of scuffs it, but doesn't matter. It goes in the back of the net. He is the player that we've been talking about, is the one that deserves that third striker. Every time I see him put it in the back of the net, I'm happy for the guy. And you can call him a mascot at this point in his career, but at least he's productive. I think if you look at like the goals per minute ratio, I don't know it exactly off the top of my head. I feel like he's been scoring in the limited time that he's gotten.
I was listen, he looked extremely motivated from minute one. I thought that his movement off the ball was great. He was definitely looking to find his teammates to assist. It wasn't just all about him doing everything, but then he found himself in the right pockets of space, and that's how he was able to get that goal in the first half there. I was very happy with that. He had a few flicks and tricks here and there that I wish other guys were on the same wavelength. There was one back heel that he had Thuram made a run. Who knows? Maybe he's clean on goal. That flick that he had to Frattesi that was just out in front of him, that could have been another opportunity that, could have led to a goal there. Yeah, no, I was very pleased with his performance. And, I mean, we've been angry with him in the past and he's squandered opportunities and his body language was off. But I would say that, for maybe 90% of his performance today, that he was on it, and it was great to see.
Yeah, and also he did Thuram celebration. He had several moments during the game where his teammates could have picked him up by scoring. Frattesi, he had a little flick over the top for that Frattesi couldn't put away. But Arnautovic playing well, and he deserves to get the start against Milan in the Coppa Italia alongside Thuram for sure. All right, I have a list of stuff that I want to talk about, but it's not in order, so let's just bounce around here.
Okay.
Sommer. Two things that I saw on Twitter here. Could he have done better on Solet's strike? I was seeing some criticism, two main points of criticism, that he reacted too slowly to get across to that side. And that goal happens because even like with the dive for it, he doesn't have the wingspan to be able to stop shots like that.
I'm trying to see if I could, looking at the goal, and again, I'm only seeing it like a small, brief second. I would share it, but it would probably get banned from YouTube, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that. But looking at it from behind, the only thing that I can say, and again, this is me not just defending him because I'm a Sommer fan. I just think you see two Inter players closing almost on Solet when that shot is taken. I think let me see if I can see who it was from the left.
Pavard and who's closing in on him?
I'm trying to see.
If it was from the left, I guess it has to be Acerbi.
Acerbi's the one on the left, yeah. So Pavard, I mean, both. Sommer is positioned right in the middle of the goal. So maybe, you can say like, oh, he should have maybe shifted a little bit more than that direction. But again, you don't know where he's shooting it. It's not like if he goes far post on that and curls it around Acerbi, if he was drifting a little bit more, you'd be like, what the heck is Sommer doing? And when you see the two closing, you would, not that I'm not saying he was making an assumption, but based on what he's seeing, I think that he would have only been able to see Acerbi's body, and then Solet is kind of behind him a little bit. Like if I'm looking, that's the only thing I could assume. And then, the ball comes out and you're like, too late at that point. And because he is only 6 feet tall, he's unable to get his outstretched hands to make a save there. At the very least, a fingertip. But I can't blame him. I'm not gonna. If the same thing happened to, if Joseph Martinez has that, because he's taller, he probably makes that save. I think it's just,
yeah.
I think it's just a height thing. That's literally the only negative I could see from that. Now, like he makes the save on Lorenzo Luca, and that is a hard reflex save, going a little bit higher into the top corner. Not exactly, but he had to literally put his hand out higher to make that save. And then another great reactionary save on, so like he's got the reflexes. It's not that he's a poor goalkeeper by any means, and he's saved us more than he's hurt us. And if that's what you're going to nitpick with him, I just think you're looking for something and someone to blame. I don't think that you are really seeing it for what it is, and I don't think you're really looking back at it from his eyes. I think you're just seeing it as a fan, which is fine. I'm not saying anyone's wrong for feeling the way they feel, but I just think if you look at it as a goalkeeper in that situation, I think he had a hard time seeing the initial strike and then had to react and was unable to.
Yeah, I think that he probably reacted a little bit slower than he should have, but in the grand scheme of all the people that should take responsibility for that goal getting scored, he's at the bottom of the list. There's 4 other players on the pitch that should have done something about that goal, and Sommer's at the very bottom of the list. The saves down the stretch too, like that save on Solet was incredible. I don't even know if he knew what he was doing. Like he might have just been throwing his arm out, but either way, it was an incredible save for him to pull off. And I don't know a lot that every goalkeeper does. So he's a huge part of why we brought home the 3 points today. I think he had one moment where he was a little iffy on the ball, but he's the last person that we're going to be trying to kill today. All right. I said earlier, 29 days out, comes in today for 60 something minutes. On the, box score at the end of the game, it's going to show that he had 2 assists. But my question is, did he play well?
I think he played okay. I wouldn't say he played well. 29 days off. Let's say that's 6 or 7 games he's maybe 5 or 6 really, because of the international break. So he gets a little more time there. And I guess thank goodness, because he probably would have been called up had he been fit. So that is good for us. But I think while his distribution was good, I think the rest of the game was a little bit lacking. But I'm going to give him a little bit of a pass just because it's his first game back. And I think if you look back at some of his performances before he got injured, take the assists away. Those are great. But this was still better than he had played before he got picked up his little knock. So I'm like I said, it was an okay performance, but I do think that he's trending in the right direction, if that kind of makes sense.
I think you nailed it. It was better than what we saw out of him before the injury. Obviously, those 2 assists, like 2 key moments, he did his job, but it wasn't the level of influence on the game that I think we were accustomed to seeing from him last year or even, the start of this season. But with Dumfries out, like he's going to need to find his form pretty quickly. So if this is him ascending into form, then 2 assists is nothing to play with. Those are important moments in the game. Let's do Frattesi. All right, so Frattesi gets on the score sheet. Prior to doing so, he had 2 other opportunities that he should have put away. He ends up having to get subbed out in like the 55th minute or 63rd minute, one of the two. He posts on Instagram after the game that something along the lines of he's been dealing with something. For anyone who knows what he's been dealing with, they know how tough it was for him to play today. I think the consensus among Interisti is like we want him gone. But I also think like everyone should be rooting for this kid to do well, because at the end of the day, it's like we got to convince someone to give us 35 mil for him. What did you make of him today, and your expectations for him through the rest of the season if Zielinski is going to be out for a long period of time, not knowing the status of what everyone else in the midfield's health is going to be through the end of the year?
I think we all just know that he's just a very limited player technically. Can't really offer much else except for these runs into the box and getting in on crosses and scoring goals. He probably cost Dimarco a 3rd assist with that effort around the 8th minute where he had a wide open net and just didn't put it in. I mean, I don't know if he would have got credit for the assist because it kind of did come off an Udinese defender there, and when he got the ball back after the initial touch, but for argument's sake, let's say he cost him a 3rd assist there. So he's a very predictable player. I mean, you kind of know what you're going to get, and you know what you're not going to get from him. When he has the opportunity to start, it really comes down to, is he going to make the most of his time on the pitch? Is he going to be able to have an impact on the score sheet? Because that's really the only place he has an impact. It's not on passing. He doesn't provide assists. He doesn't find teammates in space. Like, it's just not his game. I mean, that was a big reason why I wasn't the biggest fan of the signing, but I do want him to be successful, like you said, because we need to get money out of his sale somehow. And I'm hoping, some Nottingham Forest comes along with a $40 million offer and takes him off our hands. Or, I don't like the rumor of a Frattesi for Raspadori swap. I don't think that helps us in any way, because if anything, that I'm not the biggest Raspadori fan either. And even though some think that he works in a 2-man attack, I still think he's another very limited player. And I would rather get money for Frattesi and be able to invest in another midfielder, whether that's, I always butcher his Mastuantuano, whatever his name is. Mastantuono, there we go, thank you. From River Plate or somebody else, that would be my dream. I mean, he would. Obviously, we all know Nico Paz would be. But like you said, it looks like he's going to be staying at Como for another year. So I would rather shift to him at River. But the only way we could do that is if we sell Frattesi. So I want him to be a success. I want him to make the most of his opportunities here towards the end of the season. Maybe he comes up big in the Champions League, and I get some eyes on him too from other leagues that may not have even considered him. So yeah, it'll be important for him to be at his best for us as well, because like you said, no Zielinski, he probably now would be the first guy off the bench, really, from in the midfield. So he's going to have to play at his best, and whatever it is that he was dealing with or is dealing with, because he said that it wasn't easy for him to play this game. Yeah, I hope he's able to get through that. I don't wish anything negative on anyone, whether it's family related, relationships, whatever. I know how the mental aspect of life could be affecting you in other ways. I've experienced it myself, so I hope that he's able to get through that as well.
Yeah, agreed. Also, the thought of giving Frattesi to Conte, like that, how you can't think that that's going to come back and haunt us is beyond me.
I don't, because I don't see how he fits his team either. That's what I don't understand.
It's just the thought of giving Conte, a player that he might want in exchange for a player that I think we can do better than.
Fair.
Okay. Carlos Augusto comes in for Bastoni, plays really well. Arnautovic comes in for Lautaro, gets on the score sheet. Darmian comes in for Dumfries. Obviously couldn't do a full 90 today, but what do you think of his performance today? Like, what's your letter grade on him? I wasn't too impressed, but I also don't think that I don't know what I could have expected after as long as he's been out.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was a C. If we're gonna give a letter grade, it's a C plus in my opinion. I did think that he had good moments in the first half when he was like fresh and was able to kind of link up with some of his teammates there on the right side of the pitch. But you saw the fatigue, starting to kick in maybe really around like minute 40. Like you could tell that he just didn't have the minutes in his legs right now. Listen, he is. I don't expect the world of him. I don't expect anything. I was happy that he got to wear the captain's armband for him on a personal level. Yeah, it's a very bang average performance, maybe a little bit above if I say, C plus, because that's what I gave him. But not his best, but certainly not his worst either,
Yeah. And what about Zalewski?
I think
I liked it.
The threat of him is more exciting. Like I like that aspect.
Yeah.
I do think that he is willing to take on his man. He is a pacey player. When given time and space, that's never a good thing to be giving him that. I want to keep him. I hope that we do pick up whatever option and not set like what we did with Bellanova. I don't want to make that same mistake now with Zalewski. I'd like, if it's $7 million, like they say, pay that $7 million. Like you have to. There's no reason not to. So yeah, we'll see. And who knows? Maybe he'll have a role to play as well going forward.
I like everything that he does in the final third. I think he's pretty dynamic. Defensively, like I have worries. It's just the same feeling that I got with Aslani coming in with 15 minutes left and defending a lead. I feel the same way about Zalewski. Like I don't have a ton of confidence in him being able to shut down his side of the pitch, but I do like the incisiveness going forward. And also, it's not like Tejan wasn't incisive or Bellanova wasn't incisive. They had their skill sets, but Zalewski seems to not second guess himself so much. Like he'll fuck something up, but at least like there's not a lot of hesitation behind what he's doing, which I view as a positive. All right, Acerbi, I think we can say he put Luka in his pocket. He did have two opportunities today.
Yeah,
that first half header and the second half header. Outside of that, like Luka didn't do anything with his feet today. So yet another striker in Acerbi's pocket, guys.
So yeah, I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that he was in his pocket because he did get free on those two headers. He was just very fortunate that one was a world-class save and the other was rocketed right at Sommer. If he picked a corner with that, are we saying the same thing about Acerbi? No, we're saying, how did you lose your man there? Especially a guy who's that tall. Like that's not someone you should be losing. But again, like not a bad performance. I'm not knocking his performance, but like he did lose him twice,
No, and he's been fantastic since he came back from injury.
Yes, he has.
The hope is that he continues that. All right. Udinese. Let's just talk Bijol, Solet, Luca watch here. All three names have been linked to Inter. Bijol way back in the day, but those links have kind of died down. Solet and Luca very recently being linked to Inter. Now, we're a tough team to play against to begin with, so I don't know that you want to judge these potential transfer links all on one game, but was there anyone that stood out to you? Are you sold on any of these players?
I mean, I'm sold on both of Luca and Solet. I think Lorenzo Luca could be a very good striker. I don't think he's ready for a club like Inter quite yet. I think he does need a little bit more seasoning, maybe another year at Udinese, and then from there go on to a Fiorentina or a Bologna, or even Bologna in the summer or Fiorentina. I think that'd be fine as well, but I don't think he's ready to make the leap quite yet. He's good at finding those pockets of space. Like my big complaint with his time on the national team was they weren't crossing balls into him. Like if you're throwing him on there chasing goals, why were you not crossing to your massive target man? I mean, look at what he did with the two crosses that came into him perfectly. He didn't really provide much in link up. I did think he held up the ball well in a few instances, but again, he wasn't really given a lot of freedom, to get loose. And so I guess you could say that is a credit to Acerbi as well. He did do a good job in pocketing him for those instances, but he did manage to find space a couple times. Anyway, he's one I like. And Solet, minus one little mistake that I saw in the first half, and then you could maybe even say like he took a poor angle on a ball that was played to Thuram that allowed Thuram to just smoke past him. I don't know if that was just a lapse in judgment, or he didn't think that pass would be played the way it was. Not too sure, but Solet was a guy that we were rumored when he was even at Salzburg. So I'm glad to see that he's been able to come here in Serie A, become such a vital player for Udinese, and have the impact that he's having, not just with that wonder goal, but even, defensively. I think he's been very, very solid, and I'd be okay, with he's probably the only guy in Serie A that's available in terms of center backs that I would actually be okay with us signing. Everybody else I would want to pass on. Both guys from Bologna, I'm not a fan of either one of them. Bijol, I think that he is way too, the things that we didn't like about Skriniar, that's what he's got, with being just a straight back, very slow to react, can, commit a clumsy challenge, which is probably more so than what Skriniar did. But I don't think Bijol would be a good signing for us, and I think that we would actually see him just digress in his play, and he's only going to get slower. It's not like he's going to all of a sudden develop a burst of speed. So I hope that just like the rumors dies down as well. Any interest in him? I mean,
I'm pretty sure you and I combined can name like 40 defenders I'd rather have over Bijol at this point. It's like he's fallen off a fucking cliff.
Yeah.
Like it's we shouldn't go anywhere near him. There are, especially if Oak Tree wants to invest this summer, you can find cheaper targets than him that are going to be better players. So
100%.
Stay far away from him. Solet can play across the entire back three: right center back, center back, left center back. Physically, the perfect profile. Technically, very proficient. He can get caught out, and he does try the risky stuff, but that's what a manager is for, right? If Inzaghi is a world-class manager, then take this product that is raw but improving. And he's 25 years old. It's not like he's a kid. Like you can turn that player into an absolute beast. I'm very, very sold on him. Luca, I think he's got good feet. He's obviously very good in the air. But I think along the same lines as you do, of I wouldn't start him over Thuram or Lautaro, and I don't think he should be a third striker at this point in his career. He needs to keep playing, so I would target other strikers. All right. Anything else from this game you want to touch on here before we get to the listener questions?
No, nothing. I think we pretty much covered everything and everyone that should have been brought up. So yeah, we're good.
Yeah. All right. So interviews pod. We didn't get a ton today. Everyone's coming out of their international break a little slow, just like Inter. Did Solet impress you? Yes. From at a person 1352, Lautaro, Thuram, Arnautovic, and Jonathan David as our strike force next season. Who says no?
Who was the fourth option?
Jonathan David.
Wait, it was Lautaro, Thuram,
Arnautovic, and Jonathan David.
I think Jonathan David says no. I think he wants more money than we're going to be willing to pay him. And I know that he can probably get that from an EPL team. So I think that he would not want to come here as a fourth option, especially as a fourth option. I think that he would either at minimum be third, fighting for second. And I'm not his biggest fan, even though, he did score a wonder goal against the United States. But I think that, he does a lot of his goals and his contributions on subpar defenses with in a subpar league. And to be honest, I haven't paid attention to him in Europe, so I don't know what he did there. So I guess I could look that up and maybe have a more educated response or answer on that. But yeah, I think that he wouldn't come because we wouldn't pay him what he wants. But I wouldn't be I'm not his biggest fan personally.
Yeah, if we're re-signing Arnautovic to a contract, he's heading into the last few months of his deal now. That means we're signing, and Jonathan David, that would be 2 free agents for the strike force. Like, if that's what's happening, you better beef up the rest of the team, because I thought we were spending a good amount of money this summer. But it's not going to happen. Arnautovic is too old. Catherine Ralph was super pissed when he scored today, because obviously his value, it doesn't matter. Jonathan David, I've come around on a little bit. I think he's better than I thought he was coming into the season, but I would take him. But I'm not 100% sold. I do think that there's other options. I think getting Lautaro and Thuram's regens in Santiago Castro and Boni from Parma would be pretty cool. But yeah, let's see how that shakes out. And then jerk. Why does Barella never get any rest? I think today it's simply because of Frattesi needing to come off. Calhanoglu also needed to come off, and you weren't going to play a Primavera player in the last 15 minutes of a must-win game. Although I don't think Berenbrook would have been a bad idea there because I thought it was pretty good when he came on.
I mean, yeah, I don't think he would have been a bad idea, but like just, same thing you said. I don't think that Inzaghi was certainly not going to trust a young player to see out a game in a title race. Maybe that you would throw him on in the Coppa Italia. Let's say we're down, 3-0 to Milan. You'd probably give him the last 20, 30 minutes or something there. But, in this, unfortunately, I don't think we're going to see any young players. And no matter how fatigued Barella may be, he's going to be thrown on. That's just the nature of the beast at this point.
Okay, so that's Inter Udinese. Wednesday, Milan in the Coppa Italia. And then Parma at the weekend. I know, based off of previous conversations, that you're out on the Coppa Italia. But give me your realistic lineup. What you think Inzaghi is going to put out there. Because fact of the matter is, he has not gotten a good result against Milan at all this year. He's thrown up the 3 in the press conferences. I don't think that he's throwing this competition away. So what's your expectation for that lineup?
Well, let me say first, I'm not out on the Coppa Italia. Now you have to beat Milan. You can't lose 4 times to them in a season. Like, that's only something they can do. We can't do that. So we have to win this tie. I don't care how. I don't care if we win the first game 4-0 and then we lose the next game 3-0. That's fine by me because then we're still moving on. But we have to beat them. Realistic lineup, it's going to be Sommer in net. It's going to be Bastoni, Acerbi, Pavard.
You don't think it's going to be J-Mark?
No, I think he's going to stick with Sommer. I mean, listen, I'd be okay if he sticks with Joseph. I would not be upset with it, but I do think he's going to stick with the guy who's gotten him, this far. I mean, like that he's been
in his
defensively. Yeah, like I said, Bastoni, Acerbi, Pavard. I do think that, Bisek could be caught sleeping and lacking sometimes, and I wouldn't want that to be something that costs us. I'll say Dimarco and Darmian again in the wingbacks. Same midfield, but you swap out Frattesi for Barella to start, and then same forward group, Arnautovic and Thuram. Unless by some miracle, I doubt it, but Lautaro gets a clean bill of health by some ridiculous chance, which is not really realistic. But that's the only thing that I would say.
I'm with you on the forwards. Taremi is apparently hurt. So not going to see him.
Even if he wasn't, I wouldn't think he was going to start.
We're not going to see him anyway. Correa certainly should not be starting. So I'll do Thuram, Arnautovic. In the midfield, I'll do Barella and Mkhitaryan out of necessity. And then Aslani back there because Aslani's suspended for Parma, which means you reliably have to ask Hakan for 90 minutes at the weekend. So I think at the very least, you give Aslani the bulk of them here. On the wings, Darmian for 45 minutes, Zalewski for the next 45. Carlos Augusto, left wing back. Bastoni, left center back. De Vrij, center back. Bisek, right center back. Joseph Martinez, goalkeeper.
I mean, I like it.
I like it too. I mean, it's resting key guys where you need to rest them, but also, I don't know, do we not have confidence that De Vrij can go back there against Milan? Or Joseph Martinez can slot in. Like, at the very least, if we get knocked out, we could say we got knocked out with a bit of a rotated side. And Aslani is like your get out of jail free card. Any game that he starts, you can reliably say like you weren't really expecting to win it.
I mean, yeah, that too. Yeah, like that would have been my only negative thing. But De Vrij I do like. I think that he's had a great year himself. You know how I feel about Joseph Martinez. So while I'm not, I don't think he's gonna play Aslani. But hey, if he does, like I'm not gonna be like throwing up in arms. I'll just know that he's focused.
I think he's playing because of this weekend, because he's not available for this weekend. And just thinking Inzaghi's like, I'm trying to get in his head a little.
That's smart. Yeah, that is smart. So Yeah, maybe he gets the first half, and then you give Hakan the second half if it's a close game, and you don't, he needs at least a full half, if you bring on Hakan to get into the match. So,
how do you feel about the game, knowing that Milan, this is their whole season right now? They are losing today. I don't know how many points away they are from fourth, but it's insurmountable with 8 games left. Their only shot at Europe is to win the Coppa Italia. And they need
that gets
to be in Europe.
That gets them what? Europa League?
Europa League.
Which
is not the same kind of money that Champions League gets you. It's like Milan and Juve,
nonetheless.
Milan, Juve, Inter cannot afford to not be in Europe. Like, for their club's future, they can't afford to not be playing in Europe.
I mean, I'm okay with Juve, not being in Europe. I want them to crash and burn.
I'm okay with it.
I don't care about them one bit. I want them to fail. Forget what Carlos says, that they're important for the success of the league. No, winning trophies is important for this. Like, them being successful and finishing top 4 doesn't do anything for the league. It doesn't bring eyes in the league. It just hurts Juventini. That's all it does if they're not successful.
It's annoying that the CBS games have been Milan and Juventus, and I get that. I get that from like a marketing person standpoint of like, oh, who's got the 2 biggest fan bases in the US? But at the same time, like, you're trying to build the sport. Milan and Juve are horrendous to watch. Horrendous to watch.
They are so bad.
Show them an Inter game. Not that we've been amazing this year, but
like, show
even
them
the 2 goals we scored today were beautiful.
But show them like a Fiorentina Como game. That is more enjoyable to watch for a cat. If someone doesn't know, like, if someone's watching it for the first time, it doesn't have to be Milan, Juve, Roma, Lazio, Inter, Napoli. Like, it could be new team. Like, I don't want someone to if they're coming to the league for the first time, I don't want them to latch on to a traditional power because that's what's expected. Like, fall in love with Fiorentina. Florence is gorgeous. Like, if you became a Fiorentina fan and you decided to go watch them in person, you're going to have an incredible time. The food there is great. The architecture is great. The stadium is not so great, but you'd be supporting a team that is was one of the Seven Sisters, is still one of the Seven Sisters.
Yeah.
And they play a very enjoyable brand of football. Palladino has been doing great things with them. I think that he could, that he has an outside chance of sneaking into Europe. He's 4 points out right now. Well, really 4 points out of Europa League. He's a point out of Conference League.
I thought your Como shout was even better, to be honest. Like, those kits are gorgeous. Like, if you're watching it for the first time, like, the Como kit?
The Como kit sucks. No,
I like it.
Those cellular device bars that are going across the bottom.
It's not a cellular device bar.
Bro, look at those lines and tell me that's not cell reception. Dude.
I like those kits, dude.
Adidas gave them the most templated basic kit because they just signed with them late and they needed something to get the season going. Next year,
I like that. I like the color scheme, and they're playing in that stadium where you could see the lake while you're watching the game.
Sure, that's great. But these kits are not a reason to fall in love with Como. Nico Paz.
The black kit is fire. Even the white kit is dope.
What are you talking about? Como black.
This kit,
bro, that is gross. Again, if that was the whole, look at last year's kit. Look at last year's kit from Area, and then look at this nasty thing.
It's the waves of the lake, dude. Not the waves. The chop on top.
That Como kit. Right now from Adidas, what I'm looking at is just 5 bars, full service, Vodafone. I got great reception in Como. That's all I'm seeing right there. No.
I like it.
Not this year. Last year's were way better.
Let me see last year's kits.
Look at what Herrera did for them. It's amazing. I don't know how you don't stay with Herrera. I get it. You got more money from Adidas, but like, just no inspiration, nothing good. Listen, I'm going to sound like a pretentious douche, but now that I work in soccer and I see what goes into kit design and I see what our creative team has done for Las Vegas, and then I look at what, this template, like, it's just a black kit with 5 bars across it. That doesn't do anything. That's boring. You're not telling a story. You're not making me fall in love with the city of Como. Like, go look at what our club did for our away kit.
It's got the chop of the lake. The lake chop.
But that's what they did like a couple years ago with Area. Like they literally, it's almost like they cut the kid from Area and then taped 5 bars across their black templated kit. That's all it is. No,
Can I
man.
be honest with you? When I thought about the Como kit, I don't know why, but those bars weren't what I was thinking about. I thought like I liked that color blue with the white, the scheme. I didn't even just looking at it, I didn't even realize those those bars were on it.
Those were,
and now I'm trying to sell it like they're dope, and now
they're trash, bro. But anyway, there are other teams to enjoy watching. There's so much more. Like Udinese is good to watch. You know,
Bologna is good to watch.
Bologna is great to watch.
Yeah.
Listen, I was not the biggest Vincenzo Italiano fan. I thought that he was like, you know, they used to say Italiano ball when he was like just terrorizing and leaving his defense wide open. Now that he's learned how to play defense, Bologna are amazing to watch. Like, good for them. And you could even make a case that they're better now than they were under Thiago Motta with less talent at their disposal. Imagine what Italiano would be doing with Xerxes, Calafiori. You know, I mean,
Ferguson is coming off of an ACL.
Missed a big bunch of Lewis Ferguson. You know,
but even the players too. Like Nicola Cambiaghi was not this good.
Cambiaghi was
not this good.
Dan Ndoye was not this good.
Yeah.
You know, like they have gotten way better with Vincenzo, and he works wonders with young players. I hope that he stays another year if they qualify for Europe and learns from the mistake of Thiago Motta by leaving too soon and taking on a job like I don't think he's ready to jump to Milan or to jump to Juve.
I could see him going to Roma.
That's
even dumber. That's Ranieri liking him.
I could see that too, but I think it's dumb to make that jump right now. You don't have really money to invest in players. They have their sanctions they're going to be weighing on them.
I think that's going to be up though. And if they get into Europa League, I think that they can spend.
I don't think that makes a big difference. I really don't. I listen. I could be wrong. If the sanctions do come up, obviously that helps. But I don't think that. One, you have owners who are looking to. I don't know if the deal was done for Everton or what, but they would rather be in the EPL. So you're probably going to have some apathetic ownership and not having, a war chest to go and throw for players that would probably work well in the Italiano system. I don't know. I hope he doesn't go. That's all. If Bologna make Champions League and Roma stay Conference League, he shouldn't leave.
Give me your ranking of these 4 teams for who you want to see secure the last Champions League spot. Bologna, Juventus, Roma, Lazio.
Bologna first, Lazio second, Roma third.
You want Bologna to get into the Champions League?
Yes. That's great for that city. That's great for that that's to.
It was bad for Italy this year, though.
Bro,
what if Italiano gets poached? What if their players get poached? I don't think it's great if it's Bologna, to be honest.
Their manager got poached last year. Their players got poached last year. If they do it again, that's insane. That is insane, and that is a great story. If I see Juve in it, that does nothing. And Juve would have been kicked out just as early. Actually, they were kicked out. I'm sorry. They were kicked out just as early as Bologna. I'm sorry. They lasted to the round of 32.
2 games
not
after.
Even 16. 2 games after. But Juve was useless. Roma, I'm sorry. I don't think that they're good. And they are so reliant on Paulo Dybala. They don't deserve to be there. So are you going to say
they've been the best team in Italy since... I'm not saying they've been the best playing. I'm saying points-wise. Since Ranieri took over, they've been the best team in Italy.
Look at who they've gotten those points off of. It's all bottom-tier teams. They're not doing it against the big guns. And I like Ranieri. I do.
I like Ranieri a lot.
He is the ultimate.
This is an amazing story.
Gentleman. Yes, I love Ranieri, and I don't hate, but I just don't see. I don't see them getting into Champions League. I just don't. I mean, let's look at their remaining fixture list.
They were behind. I'm pretty sure they were behind Udinese when he took over.
Let's see how they do against Juve this weekend. Then immediately after that is the derby. So if they come away with maximum points from those 2 games, okay, I change my answer and I will say that, it'll be good if Roma get in, because then what happens is Italiano leaves Bologna and he goes to Roma, and then they become, probably a much better team there. But if they get a draw to this trash Juve team with Igor Tudor, who I think is like such a bum manager, and that the Juventini are hyping up like he's gonna save them from, he's not gonna save you. He is what he is. He's gonna burn bridges with players. He's going to isolate players. Everyone's he gave Kenan Yildiz minutes. I don't care. That kid's another overrated bum that you guys are hyping up, like you did with Fagioli, like you did with Miretti, like you did with Nicolosi Caviglia. Like, all these guys are overrated trash. Same thing with this guy. I don't see it. So go ahead, be happy that Igor Tudor, who played for you club, is now back, and you have a real Juventino in there. Like, you guys are idiots. Like, if you think that managers put their playing days above managing your club, you're an idiot. You're an idiot. Then Antonio Conte would have never coached the Inter and won a Scudetto if he was like, oh, I can't win, I gotta let Juve win. Like, just idiots. Anyway, Roma, fine, maybe. Lazio, Baroni needs to fix the defense in order to be. Now, they are hampered with injuries, so I don't see Lazio really getting in themselves. And Juve, I want Juve to finish 7th or 8th. I don't want them to have any Europe. I want them to just crash and burn. I want to see their fan base in shambles. I want them to experience a real, and I mean a real banter era. Not because, we missed Europe once and then we're back in the next year because we only have to play one game a week. No. I want them to lose every player of value, and I want them to just struggle so mightily. They need a humbling. Okay, I'm done with that.
That's pretty good.
Thanks.
Pretty good. I feel like you needed to get that out.
Yeah,
you needed to get that out.
I did.
It was compelling. I mean, I agree. Juve last, but I would go Roma, Bologna, Lazio. Lazio, I was so high on, but they've fallen off a cliff from the enjoyability standpoint recently. All right, I think that's it. We will see you guys on Wednesday. Anything you got to say for the listeners before we jump out of here?
No, nothing.
All right. In the words of the great Roberto Scarpini, forza ragazzi, forza ragazzi, forza ragazzi.